June 14th, 1944, Normandy, France. The rain hasn't stopped in 3 days. Mud clings to everything, boots, tracks, even the barrels of the Sherman tanks. The hedgerows loom ahead like fortress walls, earthen mounds 6 feet high, laced with roots and stone, topped with dense brush. From behind them, German MG 42 seconds spit death through the leaves. Sergeant Curtis G. Cullen, of the 2nd Armored Division, crouches beside his tank, cigarette trembling in his fingers. He's been fighting in these fields since D-Day, and he's furious. "Damn things might as well be castles," he mutters, slapping the mud from his sleeve. Every advance ends the same way. The Shermans push forward, tracks spinning, hulls scraping the hedgerows, then stall. German Panzerfausts wait just beyond the next mound. A single blast, and another tank burns. Behind the line, officers argue over maps. The men on the ground know better. The problem isn't strategy, it's the land itself. Normandy's bocage country was ancient farmland, centuries of compacted soil, every field boxed in by natural ramparts. Infantry can crawl through, tanks can't. Cullen leans against the tank's glacis, watching the rain streak down its armor. Around him, exhausted mechanics patch bullet holes, replace bogey wheels, and curse the endless mud. Then one of them, a New Jersey farmhand named Vernon Rich, kicks the earth and says, "Hell, if we had plows on these things, we'd be halfway to Paris." Yeah. The line hangs in the air. Cullen's eyes narrow. Plows. That night, inside a dim maintenance shed near the village of Caumont, Cullen can't sleep. The thought won't leave him alone. If the tanks can't climb the hedgerows, maybe they can cut through them. He stares at the wreckage outside, twisted steel from captured German obstacles, the Czech hedgehogs that once lined the beaches. Heavy, angular. Strong enough to stop a tank, but maybe strong enough to pierce one too. The sergeant lights another cigarette, grabs a piece of chalk, and sketches a rough shape on the side of a fuel drum, 2 prongs welded into a V, like the tusks of a bull. A battering ram for the fields of Normandy. When dawn breaks, he'll take his idea to the mechanics. They'll probably call him crazy. But if it works, just if it might change everything. The rain eases to a drizzle. Somewhere beyond the hedgerow, a German sniper fires a single shot. Cullen exhales smoke through his nose. Let's build something they won't see coming. June 15, 1944, near Caumont-les-Ventés, Normandy. Morning mist drifts across the camp like breath from the earth. The air smells of oil, cordite, and wet soil. Inside a makeshift maintenance yard, sparks flash under the canvas roof of a repair tent. Sergeant Curtis G. Cullen stands with his arms crossed, eyes fixed on the welding torch in front of him. "Sergeant, you sure about this?" asks Corporal Rich, the same farmhand who'd made the offhand joke that started it all. Cullen grins. "Not sure of anything, Rich, but sitting still's killing more of us than the Krauts are." On the workbench lie chunks of German steel pieces of beach obstacles dragged from Omaha and Utah. Their jagged edges are still blackened by salt and shrapnel. The mechanics cut them down with torches, sparks spraying across the ground like fireflies. Cullen's plan is simple, maybe even reckless. Weld 2 heavy prongs onto the lower front of a Sherman's hull. The angled blades would dig into the base of a hedgerow, slice it apart, and let the tank push through like a plow breaking new soil. He kneels beside the front plate of a Sherman and chalks rough measurements directly on the armor. 2 feet out, 20 degrees down. Think of it like a set of horns. Private Earl Jenkins, a wiry mechanic from Texas, chuckles. "You're building a bull, Sarge." "Damn right," Cullen replies. "A bull that eats hedgerows." No. The first prototype looks absurd, rough welds, uneven cuts, more junkyard sculpture than military engineering. When the battalion commander, Captain Roberts, comes to inspect it, he laughs outright. "Cullen, if Eisenhower sees this thing, he'll court-martial you for wasting steel." "Sir," Cullen answers, "give me 1 day. If it doesn't work, you can melt it back down." That afternoon, the test begins. The Sherman's engine rumbles to life, shaking the ground. The driver, nervous but curious, revs it toward the nearest hedgerow. The tank lurches forward, treads grinding, the blades hit the earth and stop. For a heartbeat, everyone thinks it's failed. Then the blades bite. The soil cracks, roots snap, and the entire hedgerow heaves like a living thing. The tank pushes through, spilling daylight on the other side. A cheer erupts from the crew. Even the captain can't hide his grin. "Well, I'll be damned," he mutters. "It works." Lumpsin. Cullen wipes the sweat and soot from his forehead. The crude steel tusks, now buried in mud and victory, glint under the Sunday. He knows this is just the beginning. Word will spread. The trick isn't just in the weld, it's in the idea that even in the chaos of war, ingenuity can move faster than command. That night, under a flickering lantern, other crews crowd around to see the Rhino tank, as the men are already calling it. Cullen says nothing, just runs a gloved hand over the rough welds. Sometimes, he thinks, the only way through hell is straight through the wall. June 18, 1944, near Saint-Lô, Normandy. The morning fog clings to the valley like smoke. The hedgerows, damp, ancient and endless, still slice the countryside into a maze of green walls. Somewhere beyond them, German mortars thump steadily, pounding the earth. Sergeant Curtis Cullen watches as his creation, a Sherman fitted with his welded steel prongs, rumbles into position. The tank's crew has nicknamed it Cullen's Rhino. Mud cakes the blades, making them look even more menacing. "All right, boys," Cullen says, shouting over the engine noise. "Time to see if our bulls got horns or just a headache." The driver nods, gripping the controls. The engine revs. The Sherman lunges forward, the steel teeth crashing into the earthen wall. Dirt explodes in a spray. The hedgerow shudders and splits. The tank pushes through, the sound of tearing roots echoing like rifle cracks. Within seconds, it bursts out onto open ground. The soldiers following behind stand frozen in disbelief. For weeks, they've been trapped in this suffocating terrain, every field a kill zone. Now, for the first time, a path opens not around the hedgerow, but through it. "Holy hell, it worked," mutters Private Jenkins. The moment spreads fast. Nearby platoons stop firing just to watch the impossible happen. A tank, once helpless in the bocage, now moves like a battering ram. The Germans on the other side don't even have time to adjust their sights. Machine gun fire erupts too late. The Sherman's turret swings and silences them in a thunderous burst. By midday, word reaches battalion command. A field mod from the 2nd Armoured just breached 3 hedgerows in under 5 minutes. Commanders can hardly believe it. For weeks, Allied divisions have been bleeding for inches of ground, losing tanks to hidden Panzerschrecks and mines buried in the bocage. But now, one squad with a welding torch has found the key. Colonel John Upham, inspecting the Rhino later that day, runs his hand over the crude welds and shakes his head. "Looks like a farm tool, Sergeant." Cullen smiles. "Yes, sir, that's exactly what it is." He explains the design, the angles, the leverage, the German steel scavenged from beach obstacles. It's ugly, but brilliant. The colonel orders immediate replication. Within hours, welding crews across the front start building their own Cullen cutters, improvising from scrap and shell fragments. By nightfall, the sound of torches fills the hedgerow fields, 1,000 sparks lighting up the French night. Mechanics, engineers, and tankers work side by side, turning plowshare science into warfare. Somewhere between exhaustion and adrenaline, Cullen sits on an ammunition crate, listening to the hammers and welders around him. The idea he scribbled on a fuel drum is now spreading across an army. He looks toward the dark horizon where Saint-Lô still burns and whispers, "Let's see what you do against this, Fritz." Tomorrow, the Rhinos will charge, and Normandy's walls will fall. June 25th, 1944, outskirts of Saint-Lô, Normandy. The dawn sky is bruised with smoke and artillery haze. The air hums with the smell of cordite, diesel, and wet grass. Along a narrow dirt lane, a column of Shermans waits, each one fitted with the new welded Cullen cutters, their jagged steel tusks caked with dried mud. Sergeant Curtis Cullen stands beside the lead tank, hands blackened from another night of welding. Behind him, infantrymen of the 29th Division crouch low, rifles ready, staring at the wall of hedgerow ahead. Beyond it lies open country and St. Lo, the linchpin of German defence in western Normandy. The radio crackles. Green light in 5. Cullen climbs onto the tank, slaps the armour twice and yells, "Make it count, boys!" The driver nods, engine roaring to life. When the order comes, advance, the line moves. The first rhino surges forward. Its steel prongs bite into the wall of earth, digging deep. The hedgerow shakes violently. Then a sound no one expected, a low, rumbling crack as the roots split apart. The tank bursts through, debris flying in all directions. From behind, infantry charge through the new gap, shouting over the chaos. Gunfire erupts close, fast, desperate. German troops scramble to realign their defences, but the line is already broken. For the first time in weeks, Allied tanks and infantry move together. No longer separated by walls of dirt and death, they pour through the bocage like floodwater. The field that once trapped them becomes a corridor of momentum. Up on a hill, Colonel Upham watches the advance through his binoculars. "Jesus," he whispers, "it's working everywhere." By midday, entire sectors of the front are shifting. Radio reports flood in 2nd Armoured through at Villiers-Fossard. 29th making ground south of St. Lo. German resistance crumbling in hedgerow sectors. Isberry-Solchen. Cullen's invention, once dismissed as a field experiment, is now a full-scale doctrine. The Rhino modification is officially ordered for every tank capable of carrying it. Mobile welding crews are dispatched across the front. Within 48 hours, over 500 Shermans carry his creation into battle. As the day bleeds into night, the landscape changes. Where hedgerows once stood like walls, there are now breaches every 100 yards. Smoke rises from burning farmhouses, tracer fire arcs across the horizon. But the sound beneath it all is unmistakable. The grinding, unstoppable churn of engines moving forward. Back at camp, Cullen stands alone beside a tank still warm from battle. Its steel teeth glisten with sap and soil. He runs his hand along the edges, the metal still humming from impact. For the first time since D-Day, the thought crosses every soldier's mind: the stalemate is breaking. The next morning, reporters embedded with the division will start calling it Cullen's device. The men prefer something simpler. They just call it the Rhino. July 10th, 1944 St. Lo, France. The rain has turned the roads to sludge again. Burnt-out tanks and shattered wagons litter the countryside. Overhead, American P-47 seconds roar low, strafing German positions clinging to the last ridges around the ruined town. Below, on the ground, the Rhinos are moving slow, steady, unstoppable. Sergeant Curtis Cullen rides on the back deck of a Sherman named Hell's Mule. Its twin steel prongs, once shiny, now blackened, are streaked with blood and sap. Behind them, a column of armoured beasts grinds through hedgerow after hedgerow, the cutters biting, splitting, and tearing the earth like paper. "Look at that, Sarge," yells the driver over the roar of the engine. "Ain't no wall in France big enough for this thing anymore." Cullen just nods, gripping the turret ring for balance. "Keep your eyes front." Every field still has teeth. Ahead, German resistance stiffens. Anti-tank guns, hidden deep behind the bocage, open fire. The first round screams past the Sherman's flank, gouging the soil. Another hits, the second tank sparks and dirt explode into the air. But the column doesn't stop. They can't. The new Rhino strategy has changed the rhythm of battle. Before, tanks had to turn sideways or expose their underbellies to crest hedgerows, easy kills for waiting gunners. Now they punch straight through, keeping their armour forward, guns level, ready to fire the instant they breach. From a forward observation post, Colonel Upham radios higher command. "We're through the last hedgerow line west of St. Lo, tanks advancing in open ground, resistance collapsing." It's happening, the nightmare of the bocage, the grinding, claustrophobic slugfest that trapped Allied divisions for a month, is finally ending. The fields of Normandy are opening. As they near the outskirts of Saint-Lô, the destruction is absolute. The medieval town has been bombed to dust walls torn apart, church spires toppled, streets choked with rubble and German corpses. The stench of smoke and death hangs heavy, yet the men of the 2nd Armoured Division keep pushing. The rhinos crush fences, cars and barricades alike. In one narrow lane, a Sherman fitted with Cullen's cutter ploughs through a stone wall, scattering German infantry like straw. The gunner fires point blank, a burst that rips through the corner of a house. The way is clear. By dusk, Saint-Lô is surrounded. Radio chatter fills the air. Reports from the 29th Infantry, the 35th Division, and the 2nd Armoured all converge into one message. Saint-Lô secured. Cullen stands on a ridge as the sun sinks through the haze. His tank crews cheer, firing flares into the sky. He doesn't join them. He just watches the burning horizon, knowing what it took sweat, risk, ridicule to reach this point. From one mad idea in a muddy field to the victory that broke the stalemate, it's been less than 3 weeks. Not bad for a crazy welding trick, says Corporal Rich, grinning beside him. Cullen smiles faintly. Crazy's what wins wars, sometimes. Below them, the engines fade into the distance, the sound of an army moving again. Normandy, once a cage, has become a corridor, and the road to Paris has just been opened. July 12th, 1944 Headquarters, 1st U.S. Army, near Carrington. The canvas flaps of the field command tent snap in the wind. Inside, maps of Normandy are spread across long wooden tables, dotted with pins and grease pencil lines that mark the slow, bloody advance inland. For weeks, every arrow had ended at the same obstacle, the hedgerows. Until now, Major General J. Lawton Collins, commander of 7 Corps, studies a fresh report delivered from the front. His staff officers stand close, whispering over the numbers. Tank losses down by nearly half. Ground gained triple what they'd managed before. Casualties sharply reduced. Collins squints at the attached sketch of a Sherman fitted with strange metal horns. "Who designed this?" he asks. "Sergeant Curtis G. Cullen, sir," replies the aide. 2nd Armoured Division. Field modification, based on salvaged German steel. They call it a rhino. The general smiles thinly. "Well, I'll be damned. A sergeant did what our engineers couldn't. Within hours, orders go out from headquarters. Every tank unit in Normandy is to copy the device. Engineers and welders are pulled from every support unit, working around the clock to fit Cullen cutters to hundreds of Shermans and Churchills. The design is simple enough that even field mechanics can replicate it in hours. By July 14th, nearly 60% of American tanks on the Western front lines have been rhinofied. Photographs of the strange, tusked tanks begin circulating up the chain of command and soon, across the Atlantic. In London, Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force receives the dispatch. The report lands on General Eisenhower's desk. He reads it twice, then looks up at his staff with a grin. "Who's this sergeant again?" "Cullen." "Remind me to meet him." Meanwhile, in the field, the legend grows faster than the official recognition. Tank crews from Britain, Canada, and even Poland begin copying the American design, welding their own versions using scrap metal and bomb fragments. The Allies' armoured divisions are transforming overnight from blunt instruments into precision breaching tools. Cullen doesn't know any of this yet. He's still knee-deep in mud outside Saint-Lô, helping a young welder reinforce another tank. Sparks dance around his helmet as he adjusts a torch. The rhythmic hiss of welding fills the air. "Hey, Sarge," the welder shouts over the noise. "Heard the brass wants to give you a medal for this thing." Cullen laughs. "Medal? Hell, I just wanted to get out of the damn hedgerows." But the truth is already larger than him. His idea, born from frustration and a farmhand's joke, has become one of the most consequential field innovations of the entire European campaign. That night, the glow of torches spreads for miles across Normandy, hundreds of tiny fires beneath the same dark sky. Each spark marks another rhino coming to life, another tank soon to carve a path through the walls of France. And in the quiet between hammer strikes, Curtis Cullen finally allows himself to believe they're going to win. July 20th, 1944, Normandy, France. The morning mist lies heavy over the fields once again. But this time, the sound that breaks the silence is not sporadic gunfire, it's the synchronized rumble of hundreds of tanks advancing together. From Caumont to Saint-Lô, the landscape trembles as the rhinos charge. From above, reconnaissance pilots radio in disbelief. Command, this is Eagle 2, multiple armored formations breaching Bocage simultaneously. They're plowing through them. Like it's nothing. For the men inside those machines, it's something close to a miracle. Each tank moves with confidence now. No more bottlenecks, no more helpless exposure at every hedgerow. The cutters dig, slice, and thrust through the earth, each impact sounding like a thunderclap across the valleys. Behind them, the infantry follows freely through the new openings, advancing without crawling on their bellies through sniper fire. For the first time since D-Day, American units are maneuvering again. The stalemate of Normandy, that suffocating month of mud and blood, is finally breaking apart. In the command tent of 7 Corps, General Collins marks new red arrows on the map. The front line is shifting rapidly southward. "We're through," he mutters. "God damn, we're finally through." No. By July 25th, the breakthrough reaches its climax during Operation Cobra, the full-scale offensive designed to shatter German defences and open the road to Brittany and Paris. The air above explodes with the thunder of 1,000 bombers. When the smoke clears, Coulin's rhinos lead the charge. From the turrets, tank commanders shout coordinates over radios. Engines roar. The earth itself seems to give way before the armoured tide. German resistance collapses. Wehrmacht soldiers, stunned by the sudden mobility of American armour, abandon their positions or surrender outright. The advance that follows is nothing short of historic. 2nd Armoured Division surges forward, capturing miles of territory that had cost hundreds of lives only days before. In 7 days, Allied forces break through to the open plains beyond Saint-Lô, the gateway to liberation. That evening, after the dust of battle settles, Sergeant Curtis Cullen stands beside his tank in a field now quiet except for the distant echo of artillery. A correspondent from Stars and Stripes approaches, notebook in hand. "They're saying your invention won the Battle of the Hedgerows," the reporter says. "You have anything to say about that?" Cullen wipes the grease from his hands and squints into the sunset. "I didn't win anything," he replies. "The boys who drove through those walls did. I just gave 'em a way to stop dying for every damn field." The reporter nods, scribbling furiously. Cullen lights a cigarette, looking over the scattered hulks of abandoned German armour. The air smells of diesel and burnt grass, but for once, it doesn't smell of defeat. In 1 week, a crazy welding trick has rewritten the battlefield. Normandy's natural fortress is gone. The Allies are free to run. Within days, Patton's Third Army will be unleashed racing across France, through broken German lines that never had time to rebuild. The road to Paris is open, and behind that victory lies the mark of one man's torch, one night's spark, and a stubborn belief that there was always a way forward even through the walls of hell. August 1944, Le Mans, France. The fields of Normandy are far behind now. The land stretches open, rolling plains, golden with harvest and freedom. The Allied advance has turned from a crawl into a storm. American convoys thunder down the roads toward Paris, passing wrecked German armour still smouldering in the ditches. In the dust of that advance rides Sergeant Curtis G. Cullen, sitting on the back deck of a rhino-fitted Sherman. His invention, once mocked as a farmer's folly, has now become standard issue across entire divisions. Every time a tank crashes through a wall or embankment, someone mutters the same phrase over the radio, "Thank Cullen for this one." At a forward base near Le Mans, A jeep pulls up beside him. Out steps General Eisenhower, flanked by aides and photographers. The Supreme Commander's face is streaked with road dust, but his grin is unmistakable. He shakes Cullen's hand firmly. "You're the man with the crazy idea," Eisenhower says. Cullen chuckles. "Yes, sir. Guess it wasn't that crazy after all." Eisenhower gestures to the distant fields where tanks are still rolling, cutting through hedges and embankments like waves. "You saved us weeks of fighting, maybe thousands of lives. Sometimes the war's won by the men who refuse to wait for orders." A nearby photographer snaps the moment the sergeant and the general, framed by the smoke of a war still burning. The picture will appear in Stars and Stripes 2 weeks later, captioned simply, "The Man Who Beat the Bocage." But Cullen never lets the fame reach his head. That night, as he returns to his unit, he walks past a line of burned-out Sherman's men he'd known, crews who hadn't lived long enough to see the breakthrough. He runs his hand along one turret, the welded teeth still intact, blackened from fire. "They got through," he whispers. "That's what matters." In the months to follow, as the Allies liberate Paris and push toward Germany, Cullen's invention remains a quiet constant, a reminder of how creativity, not just courage, shapes victory. The Rhino becomes a symbol of field ingenuity, proof that in war, a single mind with a welding torch can alter the fate of nations. By the time the war ends, over 1,500 tanks will have been fitted with his device. Cullen himself will be awarded the Legion of Merit, though he rarely speaks of it after returning home. When asked years later about the moment of inspiration, he simply says, "We were stuck, and I was tired of being stuck." History books will call it the Cullen Cutter. Soldiers will remember it as the Rhino. But to the men who fought in the hedgerows, it was something far greater, a way out. One night, long after the guns have gone silent, Cullen stands alone on his farm in New Jersey. The summer air smells of earth and iron. Fireflies flicker over the fields, tiny sparks, like those that once flew from his torch in Normandy. He smiles to himself. Sometimes, the smallest sparks burn long after the battle is over.